Thank you, Stephen. Learning through adversity. It's a hard thing to do, but in most cases, is also the right thing to do. For me, it is simple in about half of the cases. In the other half, I get frustrated and either forget about what has been learned or just totally forget about learning anything at all. Hopefully, this speech won't be a frustrating problem for you guys today, and you can learn something today. So in October of last year, I found out that I had a problem. It had downsides and upsides like a hill. Now let's call this hill Mount Everest. So it all started when I woke up one day and opened my eyes. First thing you pretty much do in the morning, right? Well, what I was seeing was something that you will probably never experience. Seeing something doubled. Interestingly, there's an advantage to this problem. If I saw something cool, I didn't have to look at it twice now, did I? About 2 weeks after I started having double vision, I started getting nauseous. It's pretty weird, because even if I didn't eat anything, I would still barf out things like saliva and stomach acid. I had it for 6 days before I decided to pay a visit to the BC Children's Hospital's emergency room. At the ER, I was really dizzy, unstable, and nauseous, just like what I think a drunk person would be like. Something that I found frustrating at the ER was that it took a long time before a doctor would come and take a proper look at me. And at that time, Mount Everest was growing really, really fast. So after doing all the CT and MRI scans, I was really tired. In fact, during the scans, I was actually sleeping, despite the loud noises that the MRI machine made. Even when the doctors told me that they needed to do brain surgery or neurosurgery later that evening, that information didn't quite register itself in my brain. I think usually later that night, I was actually pretty excited to have surgery done on my head. I think it's because I wanted to know what having surgery felt like. Though the thought of your head being cut open is pretty scary, right? So while being pulled to the operating room, I suddenly became anxious at the same time about what they would do to me, because the doctors did not give me any information at all. Then suddenly, I was in the operating room. They were putting a gas mask onto my mouth. The air that I was breathing was different than the usual air. And in a matter of seconds, I was numb all over and unconscious. The culprit? General anesthesia. The next day, I found myself in the intensive care unit, known as the ICU. When my family came to visit me later that afternoon, my mom and dad would sit next to me and hold my hand, while my sister, Daisy, would stand there and stare at me. This was one of the saddest points of my life, because my family was devastated, and I was confused about what was going to happen to me, and if I could continue with life as I knew it. At that time, Mount Everest reached its full height and was towering over me like a bully. The next morning, I was visited by one of the neurosurgeons, and she asked if my double vision had improved. And I had no idea, mostly because I didn't even know which one of her that I was seeing was actually the real her. So I decided to go with saying that it had improved. That thought immediately changed once I saw myself in a mirror. I don't know what the neurosurgeons did during the surgery, but it was a really scary sight, with my right eye squished into my nose and my left eye squished a little inwards, but not as much as my right. Looks weird, huh? After the visit, I was sent to the hospital wards, since I was in no need of a nurse 24/7. The next morning, I was visited by one of the neurosurgeons. One time, I was trying to sleep in my room in 3R. And Andrea, my social worker, came in and visited me. They thought I was sleeping. So Andrea decided to start a conversation with my mom. So she started with, "It must be hard to tell Derek about his brain tumor." And I was thinking, yeah, must be a brain tumor or something like that. How else would that? Wait, what? I have a brain tumor? Funny that I was able to continue fake sleeping with all those emotions coursing through my brain. A few days later, I found out what the surgeons did during the surgery. They took a biopsy, or a sample of my tumor, to examine it. And in the meantime, I was to continue living my normal life with some crazy-looking eyes. I was nervous on the day that I continued with school because I thought I would be stared at, but I was thankfully wrong. My friends and I continued with our usual routine, and it was as though nothing happened to me. The neurosurgeons eventually called us back to the hospital for a meeting. The results were that my tumor was a non-cancerous tumor, or a benign tumor. And that was all they were able to find out about it. So they decided that they would need to do a major neurosurgery and cut open my head once again to try and dig out the whole tumor, or at least most of it. And so they did. Things after the surgery went by just like the other one. There was a day when a few people I knew came and gave me some cards. One of those people included my teacher. She gave me a booklet of Get Well Soon cards made by my class. But I was so exhausted when it was handed to me that I don't think I was really appreciative of it. But now I'm really thankful because it makes me feel that my friends and classmates actually cared. And that was when I began my slow journey up Everest. A cool thing was that I was actually able to feel my brain, where they cut the back of my skull, where the bone hadn't formed together yet. To tell you the truth, it isn't that interesting, since it's just mushy when I press on the skin. But it is an awesome thing to say in a conversation, though. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in this room who has touched their brain before. I continued the school and decided to keep quiet about the situation that I was in. Although I just really wanted to tell my classmates about what I was going through, I just couldn't find the courage to. When the doctors met with us and told my family that I had cancer, I was one of the approximately 476 people in Canada who were devastated by cancer that day. The results were that I had a small, malignant tumor that was surrounded by a ping-pong-sized, benign tumor. When I was told that, I was tripping and falling on Mount Everest. But when the oncologist announced that the cancer that I had was a cancer that they knew how to treat really well, I was happy. I was elated. I was so happy to be lucky after an unlucky start. And my trek continued up Everest. After deciding that I would start treatment, I was sent to the operating room again. But the treatment consisted of 4 rounds of chemotherapy and then radiation therapy after that. So this time when I was sent to the operating room, it was to place a VAD into my chest. Just like Iron Man. Yeah. Okay, fine, it's not as cool, but still, the thing is in my chest. Okay? Anyways, I was told that the operation was going to be nothing compared to my neurosurgeries, so I was really relaxed on the day that I entered the operating room for the 3rd time, even though I had no idea what a VAD even looked like. During the treatment, I was fascinated by the technology at the hospital. For example, the IV machines. They're pretty much computers on a pole. They can control the flow of liquid coursing into your body, and they know exactly who you are when they scan your bracelet, which has a QR code on it. Connection. Even the needles are high-tech with their safety systems. When the side effects of chemo began to show, such as nausea, hair loss, and a lower blood count, I knew that chemo wasn't going to be fun. Despite the many video games, movies, and books. But it did help. The thing that I dreaded was having a blood transfusion, which they gave to me when my blood count was really low. And I also dreaded having a low blood count because it meant that I would not be able to go to school. Although I disliked the process of chemo, I would always try to bring a smile into the clinic and try and cheer up others. When the chemo was completed after 4 months and several needles inserted into my chest, my friends threw a surprise party for me. And I believe that on that day I was smiling from ear to ear because I was so surprised. And that was the part where instead of crawling up Mount Everest, I was running up it like Usain Bolt. All this time, I always wore a toque on my head in public, and even if it was hot outside. Whenever I wore it, I would feel trapped inside and that I looked weird because I always wore it. But when all my classmates began wearing one, every school day of the month of February, I was elated. I felt accepted. And even in my class picture, everyone had a toque on. Another way my friends supported me was through giving me thoughtful cards that I appreciated a lot. And on the day that I told them about my illness, they were very nice and sympathetic. In April, I was left alone after all the treatment, and I continued with life to see what it would throw at me. Even though I still have to occasionally go to the hospital, I'm now able to take some time to breathe and do things a regular kid could do. Mount Everest was conquered, and I felt victorious with the items that I received from the hospital. My personality has changed while going through everything, and cancer has helped me create my own motto. This adversity has taught me a lot of things. A few of those things include how the support of friends and family can help you go through serious obstacles or hills in your life, and how having a positive attitude is always the way to go. But most importantly, that no matter how bad a situation seems to you at the present moment, it will have to get better. So use my motto at those times. No worry. Be happy. Thank you.